Dude, I said it backwards again. God damn it. I was like, I've been on fire. One take McGowan is what I'm going to become after this, and then all of a sudden I'm 8 take McGowan. All right. Well, we had a really fun morning going through apparel. Madeline actually just caught a beautiful rainbow, so we're all feeling pretty good about things. And now we're gonna take some time to go through rods. So I have 4, or actually 5 of my favorite setups with me that we've been playing around today. And you know, with this, I know it can be a lot of rods, but this really covers the full gambit. And fortunate enough, when you're in a boat, you can carry those rods, so it makes it pretty easy. So starting on the lighter side of things, going to start with the Helios F 9-foot 5-weight. So this is, for me, for the water that we're on, where we're playing with runoff right now, so we're playing with kind of bigger bugs. This is a really good starting point. This tends to be a rod I use a fair amount, but I really like for single dries. And so right now, bigger water, we are throwing a larger foam fly with this. On a single fly, this would be my go-to setup. Paired with this is going to be the Scientific Angler's Amplitude Texture Trout Standard. So Trout Standard being the taper. And as I always say, there's good rods, great rods, and exceptional rods. It's really the fly line that makes a lot of difference. You can have, you know, the highest priced rod in the game, but make it feel pretty bad with the wrong line. You can also have a pretty inexpensive rod and make it feel really good with the right fly line. So with the F series, F of course meaning finesse, being more of a mid-flex, kind of true to action rod, the Trout Standard pairs up beautifully, and the Trout Standard is a true to line weight, all-purpose taper. So an ideal setup paired with that is going to be my favorite reel, the Orvis CFO, USA made click pawl, just a classic, love the sound. And then of course, love the aesthetic of just that classic reel, and love pairing it up on the rod that I know I'm primarily using for dry fly. Next one on the list is going to be the 905, so 9-foot 5-weight Helios D. So the difference between the two rods is that the D is going to be more of a Tipflex. It's going to feel like a crisper, faster rod. But really what it is just giving you a little bit of a longer lever. It's concentrating the flex more at the tip, where here it's going to be a little bit more of a full flex down through the belly of the rod. So this rod I always like to pair, because this is kind of my gun for dry flies. You know, it can be kind of overkill on a typical day, but when you're running big foam flies, maybe running a dropper off that, or you just want to be quick and efficient during runoff right now, where you're having to cast quick because you're floating by run so fast. This is a very fast, very efficient rod. Because of that crisper action, I've paired it up with a Scientific Angler's Amplitude Texture Infinity, with the Infinity also being an all-purpose taper, but being a half line weight heavy, pairs up beautifully with this rod. The nice thing about this rod too is now you're starting to get in that area where you can start to play around with streamers. So when we talk about, you know, one rod to rule them all, I generally consider this one at least in the conversation. And on there, have a beautiful, love that blue, that pops. That blue Hydros reel turns out great, and pairs up with the nice blue accent that we use on the D series. Next is one of my go-tos, and to me probably sits on the pole for best all-around rod, is the 9-foot 5-inch 5-weight. So this was a series that we called the Blackout that we did for a couple years, but we still make this rod, but it's going to be in the cosmetic package of the new Helios D series. So this rod is just 5 inches longer, but that 5 inches makes a big difference in how it casts. This to me is a rod that really excels on the nymphing world. So typically where I'm gonna have, you know, my dedicated dry fly rod, a dedicated streamer rod, this would be my dedicated nymphing rod. And so with this, for that nymphing systems, it pairs beautifully with the Scientific Angler's Amplitude Texture Anadrೊ. The Anadrೊ taper is built 1.5 line weights heavy, and it's a very short, abrupt front taper. This thing is all about turnover, all about power. So when you're running bobbers, heavy nymph rigs, this is the system. At the same time, this rod casts beautifully You know, with foam flies, it's a great streamer rod. It can handle a lot of big bugs, and it's just a very good system. One little secret that I like with this rod is that because of that short front taper and being a 1.5 weight heavy line, it really isn't technically the dedicated dry fly setup. However, Scientific Anglers makes the presentation leader, and that presentation leader is 11 or 14 feet. But it's got a very long butt section. About 2/3, if not even a little bit more, of the leader are thick butt section. And so it creates a lot of turnover, but then it has like a nice long front taper. So with this, you could take this line, add that leader to it, and it becomes an actually very phenomenal light dry fly setup. Oh, and that one would be paired with the Blackout Mirage, which is a sexy looking reel. And then, so I'm kind of moving up in kind of firmness and actions of the rod. So now I'm going to go back to the F. So here we have the 906F. So the 906F, there's some overlap between this and the 905D. The benefit here is that you're getting that nice full flex, which I like for streamer fishing. It removes some of that jerkiness that you feel in the setup. But you have this nice powerful butt section being a 6 weight. So this to me is a very universal rod in that it's a powerful rod because it harnesses all the power of the 6 weight and the capability to handle higher mass. And so for me, it's a very universal rod that, you know, to me really kind of excels in the big foam flies. So now we're talking like large hoppers, salmon flies, maybe throwing 2 squalas, something of that sort. It's going to really excel there. I also have this paired with the Infinity, but this also is a very good streamer rod. And so I typically am keeping this one in the boat as a floating line streamer setup. Knowing that if I need to, it's going to absolutely rule at you know, large foam flies, but also even as a phenomenal nymphing rod, just giving you a lot of power, especially when right now the water's high, we're having to throw deeper rigs, probably weight on those rigs. And so this is a great rod for that. And then finally is my go-to everyday dedicated streamer rod. And this is the 906D. So now you're gonna have that crisper action through the rod, but I'm pairing it up with the Scientific Anglers Sonar Trout Express streamer line. And so this is my favorite streamer line anywhere in the Northern Rockies. It has about a 12 to 16 foot sink section. It's sink 5, so on sink rate, so it's enough mass to pull down some of the larger streamers we're using that have bucktail heads and are maybe a little more buoyant. But at the same time, it's not so so fast of a sink rate that it's just gonna plummet on some of those smaller, faster sink rate streamers. But this thing is an absolute cannon. It turns over, I mean, even when I make a bad cast, like somehow magically the streamer lands where I want it to land. So it's an absolutely just beautiful, very efficient streamer setup. Pretty much always leave it paired with a sink tip. I believe I have this one in the 185 grain, so about 1.5 line weights heavy. And this rod is a cannon. So for most Northern Rockies fishing, you're probably getting a little bit too much of a gun for just your dry fly fishing or even nymphing. It's quite a bit of rod, you know. So for me, making this my dedicated streamer setup has really been the winning ticket. Also paired with the Mirage on the 5 weight, I'm using size 2 reels, and on the 6 weight, I am using a size 3. And then for those of you that haven't taken notes, no worries. We will provide the links below so that you can check out all these products individually and gain more information. So the most common question, if I could only bring one rod, which rod should I bring? And to me, that really comes down to the 905D or the 906F. And a lot of times you wouldn't think about a 6 weight being the everyday rod. But for up here, when we're throwing a little bit of everything, you know, this is a rod that can really throw a size 20 Baetis all the way up to this big globber of a streamer that we have on here now. The benefit of this rod is that I like the mid flex. It gives a little bit more forgiveness, a little bit better at mending, but I know that I have that additional power harnessed in the butt section for throwing some of these larger bugs, and even if I wanted to put a sink tip on it. The 905D it's going to be, if you're going to be focusing a little bit more on the dry fly game, still capable, it could absolutely throw this streamer, but you're pushing the outer limits of it. At the same time, it can absolutely cast a small, a small dry. But for what I like about this rod is the quickness and efficiency in the way that it casts, being that tip action. So it makes it a very efficient dry fly rod. So anything from a small to a large, it's going to be great at most nymph systems and most streamers, but it does have a bottom end on it. So the conclusion, if I were to select one rod for the majority of fishing in the Northern Rockies, which includes all systems being dry flies, nymphing, and streamers, then I would personally select the 906F. This would be my choice to do it all. I fished this rod for years, and when I'm heading to the river and I can only take one rod, this is probably the rod I'm bringing along.